forward to today's conversation, to be honest, Wesley. So obviously, automation and AI has taken the market by storm lately, and I think the biggest thing we've mentioned in previous webinars is Copilot and Microsoft automation. And a lot of businesses out there, I'm sure you'd agree, they look at Microsoft automation and go, we don't know about it, we don't have it in place. But little do they know, with the Microsoft packages they've already got access to a level of automation and functionality within that space itself. They just don't know how to use it, which is quite interesting. Hopefully we had to give some people some insights today. But yeah, specifically, I mean, automation lately, I mean, I think it's the biggest thing for any organization, to stop them kind of repetitive, mundane, manual tasks, which are constantly, having to be carried out day by day. I've seen some companies that we work with, when we've implemented that automation, they've saved hours in a week, not just minutes here and there. They've literally saved hours of repeating the same task over and over again. So but no, looking forward to kickstarting. So, and for those who's just joined us, welcome to today's call, guys. Really good to see you here again. We're just going to wait a few more minutes for additional attendees to come in, and then we'll kickstart the show for you guys. So, but hope you're having a great Wednesday so far. But no, specifically, Wesley, is there anything that you wanted to touch on today? Just while we're having a bit of a catch up now, as
Yeah,
features
Jamie.
here and there.
I think, look, I think this webinar is definitely going to be focused on what's coming, because I think on the horizon we have a very big sort of game-changing functionality that I think is coming to Office. That, like you said, everyone that just has their Office package is going to have access to Copilot, and Copilot's really going to be that great integration between what we've seen from AI and ChatGPT and building it into these apps directly. And I think there's a lot of power and functionality and time saving that's going to come from that, for sure. Obviously,
100%.
It's on the horizon. It's not out yet. So a lot of what we're going to speak about is definitely going to be theory and hypothesizing about how it can save us time. But definitely a lot of it is coming for sure. So it's going to be fun to talk about.
No, understandable. I'm really excited, to be honest with you. I've seen in the last 10 years of my career in IT, I've seen businesses transform massively when it comes to automating processes internally, and it's being improved even more by stuff like Microsoft Copilot, and certain other elements. I think one of the things I wanted to hit on is the how easy it is to implement, or should I say how easy it is to operate, from an end user perspective, because Wesley, we're not all as privileged as yourself to know software language, and how to develop software. So could it be something that a business like ourselves, an end user like ourselves, somebody who has a little bit of tech knowledge but are not truly developers, is it something that we could just run with, for example? So
look, I think AI in general is something that anyone can run with. I think there's a very low barrier to entry when it comes to using something like ChatGPT itself. I mean, it's intuitive to speak to it. It's a natural language model, right? You just type in the prompt and it interprets exactly what you say, like it was a human that you're speaking to. So from that perspective and what we've seen with something like ChatGPT, and I think ChatGPT is the best sort of thing to compare Copilot coming up with. Yeah, it's going to be very low barrier to entry. It's going to be like having an assistant there doing the editing of the document for you or the analyzing of the Excel spreadsheet for you. It's going to be just like that.
So it's potentially a lot of cost reductions for companies as well who want to reduce the number of staff they have. So, but guys, what we'll do, we'll just give it, say, 30 more seconds for a couple of additional attendees to join, and then we'll kickstart for you guys. So I do see in the attendees there's a few people I'm aware of. So Werner, Bradley, welcome. All of you guys there, really good to see you today. So thank you ever so much for joining. But no, to be honest, Wes, it's a space that I want to invest a lot more time in the future myself. I really want to implement a lot more automation in the new business department, to kind of stop that repetitive task being carried over and over again. I know we're looking at a lot of automation internally at the moment, and we've took a massive step forward in that regard. And I'm really keen to see how much further we can get with aid from something like Microsoft Copilot, obviously being users of the 365 space ourselves. So But I think we're at 2 minutes past, so we'll maybe start the webinar now, guys. But again, thank you ever so much for your attendance this morning. For those who've attended previously, welcome back. Really good to see you as always. As I mentioned, Werner, Bradley, I recognise you guys in the crowd there, so thank you ever so much for joining today. It's really good to see you, and you'll all have opportunities at the end of this conversation to ask any questions based on what has been discussed. So today's show is all about Microsoft 365 automation, driving business productivity with artificial intelligence. And again, we have a guest which we're welcoming back to the seat, which is our own internal software developer, head of development, should I say. Not bigging you up enough here, Wesley. But we have Wesley on the call with us today. Wesley's obviously our head of development internally. He's been doing a lot of automation in-house for our organization and also in aid of our clients as well. So I thought there's no better person to get on this call with me today other than the man himself who deals with automation for our organization. So Wesley, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jamie. Really appreciate it. Oh, lovely to be back. Yeah, guys, talking about Microsoft automation, I think we're going to focus heavily on Copilot today, which is a AI functionality that's coming up very shortly. I think let's just start from the beginning, because obviously we've seen ChatGPT come out and we've seen how people have sort of reached into that bubble to improve their workflows, both improve business functionality and just creative workflows all across the board. It's definitely had a big impact, and I think very reminiscent of when the internet first started. We've seen businesses sort of dip their toes and try and sort of repurpose their functionality to fit into this new space. So after the internet came up and we saw a big rise in the internet, we saw businesses reach into e-commerce, for instance, changing their businesses over to e-commerce business. And I think Microsoft has seen the potential. There were big players behind the scenes initially. So when OpenAI first was looking for venture capital, I think Microsoft invested like $1 billion into it with its initial, I think this was in 2019. So Microsoft's definitely been a player behind the scenes with OpenAI. I think along with Elon Musk, there's a lot of big players sort of building up this company and building up this AI language model behind the scenes that a lot of people probably weren't even aware of the impact it was going to have. And then recently, beginning of this year, Microsoft invested another 10 billion into OpenAI, further extending its partnership with them. And I think now, obviously, we've seen Microsoft's serious sort of attitude that it's having towards using AI within its products. And now that they've released Copilot, it's very easy to see what their vision was all those years back. I mean, we can jump right into it, Jamie. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
To be honest, I mean, I was just going to say with the Microsoft space, I mean, we've been working with it for a number of years now, and obviously with Power Automate and Power Business Intelligence, there's been a level of AI embedded within those kind of platforms, which allows you to develop softwares through Power Apps or develop a new business process using low code, no code, and command prompts. Very much similar to OpenAI and ChatGPT. So no, it's not surprising that Microsoft are heavily investing in this space. At the end of the day, they are market leaders, and in order to retain as market leaders, you need to keep investing in the organization. And I think that's what they do tremendously well, and they will keep doing that moving forward. But no, by all means, let's jump straight into it, because there's a lot of elements of Copilot that we could dive into, and obviously I'll leave you lead the conversation, my friend, knowing being the specialist of the chat today. So
yeah, of course. I mean, we can jump right into Outlook, for example. I think everyone uses Outlook, everyone knows how Outlook works, but what if we could just have a chat GPT or an assistant right there to vet our drafts before we send them? I think Outlook already has a very strong sort of grammar detection and spell checking detection, but I mean, nothing really beats what we've seen ChatGPT being able to do, interpreting what you're saying and giving you, personalizing it based on who you're speaking to. It can read the previous conversations and know what maybe tone of this conversation is and give you hints on that. I mean, we've got the functionality of ChatGPT to maybe ask it, make it sound more professional, make it sound more casual, without even having to really think about typing up the document. You can ask it to make amendments to the document, like mention that there's going to be a lunch at this event, and then it'll just update the document to mention that in the draft, for instance. So, I mean, building ChatGPT into something like Outlook is going to have a lot of that really useful functionality that we've seen, but we've had to, go to ChatGPT, copy paste into our email currently. So it's
And
going
you
to be
know what,
very
Wesley,
fun.
On that point there, I think obviously we've experienced this where obviously you guys in South Africa, I sometimes go into ChatGPT and ask it to translate a quick pitch or whatever it is into Afrikaans, and I've sent it over to you guys, and you've gone, oh, how have you learned Afrikaans? It's like, well, I haven't. My friend ChatGPT has learnt it for me. So to have an effective translator as well, I suppose that kind of enables business to move into a multi-country market. They could easily branch into France, Dubai, into the Japanese markets, wherever they want to do business, because effectively they've got ChatGPT, which can market for them in whichever language is available, or what it's aware of currently. So.
No, 100%. I mean, it's also obviously we don't have access to Copilot yet. It's a very limited sort of distribution that some Microsoft partners have and some don't. But what we've seen from what's been shown, that there's going to be sort of a sidebar to the app now that's going to be sort of your Copilot assistant. And in there, you'll be able to ask it specific questions related to, for instance, if it's Outlook, you'll be able to ask it to determine which of your emails that came today have the most priority, which ones should I look at, and then you'll also have the Copilot built into the draft that you're writing. So you'll be able to type in there, hey, Copilot, please help me write a response to this person that's asking for a sales pitch on a product, for instance, that kind of thing. So there's multiple aspects to it. And it's going to be really interesting to see. I know I'm going to play around with it a lot, asking it to summarize my emails and read through this last 20 plus email chain conversation and summarize it for me. I'm really, really excited to see how that sort of improves my business flow as well. I mean, might not trust it initially, but after we've used it for a couple of times and we see how reliable it is, it's going to be really fun to see how much time it saves us.
100%. I suppose it's very similar to obviously ChatGPT, where me first going onto that platform really didn't know what to ask it, and I had to play around with different prompts and really know how to work that language model to get the results that I wanted. But I think with a bit of practice, like anybody, they can learn to use that language model, and eventually, if it's would you say it's built the same as ChatGPT, where it's going to be learning as it progresses? I know ChatGPT was cut off in 2021, I think it was, but will it have the ability to keep learning and improving as an artificial intelligence model as it's further integrated into more businesses in the future? If that makes sense.
No, fully. From my perspective, I think it's not going to have access to No, it's going to be very similar to the access that Bing's AI. It's not called Copilot. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But the Bing AI is similarly, that has access to internet. I think Copilot is going to have a similar access to the internet. Yes.
Perfect.
So yeah, it'll constantly learn, and it'll constantly it'll be able to have relevant internet information and feed that back into whatever prompts you're asking.
Based on that point, Wesley, would it naturally be able to learn your specific organization as it works with you further as your AI assistant? Just thinking about the possibilities in the future of it truly becoming I suppose, an electronic member of staff within your organization. Will it know how to respond to an email after responding 3 months consistently to the same query? Would it know automatically how to then just go, leave this with me, I have the response, I will populate and send? Obviously with approval. Do you reckon it would have that sort of power? I know we're theorizing here quite dramatically, but yeah, obviously the power of AI is exceptional at the moment, and I'm excited and also a little bit scared about where it can end up in the future. More excited, but obviously there is a little bit the scare there as well. So
I think there's 2 points probably to your question there, Jamie. It'll definitely be able to personalize the response in your email based on what it sees in the email chain. I think it'll use that as its sort of determining factor to learn or understand what the tone of the conversation is and who it's speaking to as well, and what the members of the conversation are. It'll be able to understand based on that. It's not going to have any information, or it's not going to interpret any information outside, I think, of that email chain. But it does also play into the second factor, which is it has access to whatever documents you have access to in your office. So for instance, if you have financial information or some stats, you'll be able to ask it to pull from this specific document. And based on that, do a write-up, do a summary, draft an email response to some product information that's in another document, that kind of thing.
Awesome. Just one final point on that as well. With obviously the AI being directly connected to your Microsoft 365 space and your tenancy, I'm gathering it's also connected to your if you use Azure Active Directory, it's also connected to that. So we could also help you with internal processes and permissions, so to speak. Obviously, keeping people locked out the files and folders they shouldn't be in, allowing the ones who have access to be in there. Giving you that streamlined control really, but using AI as that kind of control panel, if that makes sense. Linking into Azure Active Directory.
I don't think Copilot's coming to Azure, at least in the beginning. I don't see why they wouldn't in the future for sure, because that's a very complicated thing for people to understand. And if you had an AI assistant in there, it would be absolutely amazing.
Definitely.
But it's definitely fun because, I mean, we can jump into Excel as well. So obviously, everyone here uses Excel. I think from my perspective, when I think about how people will initially use Copilot, I think Excel will provide, or using it within Excel will provide the biggest time saver. I think Excel sort of is an application that all functions of a business and all departments of a business spend most of their time dealing with. And it'll be interesting because we've seen from what Microsoft has demoed that Copilot's able to analyze data sets and sort of mention key trends that it finds in there or that it picks up. It's also able to drill down into that because you can ask it follow-up questions based on what it summarizes from the document. And I think we've all also had to probably figure out how to create graphs in Excel. I know I've spent countless hours trying to figure out how to turn a data set into a nice little pretty graph for me to show my boss or whatever it might be. So like sales and financials, some KPIs, for instance, we've all had to visualize that for like ourselves or someone else. So it's going to be really interesting to play around with Copilot and ask it based on a prompt. We just ask it, analyze the quarter's sales results and show me in a graph, or break down the sales by sales type and sales channel, for instance. It's going to be interesting to see how efficient it is at that. And I mean, also asking follow-up questions on that as well. Maybe it summarizes it into a table with percentages based on the quarter, and you just ask it like highlight the decline, highlight why there was a decline in growth, what channel or what sector of business contributed to declining growth, and then maybe highlight specific tabs of that table. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But at the end of the day, it's just going to be like having some sales assistant or some business analyst assistant just doing that job for them.
There is, I know there's obviously limited functionality out there at the moment available through Microsoft for that exact purpose. So Power BI, you can visualize any data set that it has access to, obviously, and you can put it into whatever graphs. And I know that they use a low code, no code kind of command prompt there as well. So exactly like you said, Wesley, you can say to the command prompt, how much profit have I earned off the existing client base over the last 12 months, and it can give you a visual data set of that. So I'm guessing Copilot is going to be a combination of Power BI, Power Automate, Power App that's going to be essentially controlled by that language model that allows you to seamlessly and easily ask it questions and get the results without having to deep dive and spend hours upon hours, physically going through a data set or Excel spreadsheet and populating a table graph. So for any of those out there who are business analysts, or your tasks are based around reporting on KPIs monthly, Copilot, probably the one for you guys. So but no, it's Excel. To be honest, Wesley, Excel is something that I use day in, day out. I'm not the biggest fan of Excel because I'm not the most fluent with its internal prompts and kind of calculations that it does. I do need a bit of assistance there. So for Copilot to be built into Excel, that would be a big win feature for me personally. And I think for any sales guy out there looking at looking into drilling down into their monthly and weekly figures, that's something that obviously would save a mass amount of time.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting when you were talking about Power BI and Power Automate and those kinds of apps, Jamie. It seems like Microsoft has been on this drive for the past decade to sort of minimize the amount of work it takes someone to get to the information that they want to see. And with AI, it looks like they finally sort of hit the minimum that's required from the end user to get the data or see the data in the way that they want to see it. So it's very exciting. Microsoft is obviously very confident in this as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see what comes of it. I'm sure you're going to get those masters out there that have that write courses on how to correctly prompt Copilot. So it'll be very interesting to see what comes from the future.
Well, Wesley, I'd like to see you being one of those gentlemen who put a few instructions out there for the lovely guests we have on the call today. So be sure to check in with us in the future. I'll make sure I give Wesley the task of generating some instructions for you guys. So
Yeah, I mean, that's another fun one because there's going to be a new sort of job type that or job role that comes, which is just going to be the prompt master for AI, for instance. So that's going to be a fun one as well. There's going to be
I was
these AI experts, definitely.
I was going to say it's probably going to create a new market for professionals. You know, the ones who spend hours and hours on ChatGPT and knows how to, you know, really bend that language model to do things that it should and maybe even shouldn't do.
Mm.
Which obviously we've all seen there as well. So, but no, to be honest, I'm excited as you. You know, just knowing that it builds into the all of these applications. The one of the questions I have is how for somebody who their main role, so administrator, you know, their main role is data sets, it is working on emails and so how much time can actually be saved, Wesley? You know, because we've all been in that administrator role, or we all have a level of admin that we need to carry out in our role. You know, a lot of people say to me, we want to invest in AI, but is it worth the money? You know, is it, what can it actually truly do for us?
Mm.
Because yeah, a lot of the time I say to them, well, look, it can save you a minute on this task, it can save you 2 minutes on the other task. But what they don't realize is that repeating that task 2 or 3 times a day over the course of a week, 4 weeks in a month, and 12 months in a year, essentially,
Mm.
when you tally all that time up, they can be losing a lot of money in lost productivity and downtime. You know, just from repeating the same mundane tasks.
Mm.
Um, other applications, Wesley, what sort of other applications can it build into, and what sort of time can it save somebody in that kind of administrator role?
Yeah, I mean, Jamie, just to jump back a little bit, you saying it can save you 1 minute there or 2 minutes there. Maybe it saves you 1 minute, the 1 minute there or 2 minutes there because you are probably already really efficient at doing that specific job or analyzing that kind of data. But for someone that hasn't done it before, it probably saves them hours, you know. So it's also about who's using it and for what, because you will still have those experts in your company that have spent years learning how to do Excel. That's fine. They'll probably be a little bit as good as obviously AI will be able to create the tables for you quicker, but um for the person that isn't experienced at Excel, I mean, this is game changing. This is saving you hours of having to figure out how to generate those functions that do those calculations, those really advanced calculations, and reference to other tabs in Excel and all that kind of stuff. I mean, not everyone has time to do that. If you're an owner of a company, you don't have time to analyze or make sure that a specific data set is showing you what you want to see. If you can just ask Copilot to do it for you, I mean, it saves you that time.
To be honest, I mean, another time saving element there as well is that person training that new starter in Office applications, because
Exactly.
essentially that AI is the trainer. It's telling you what you need to do and it can take care of the rest for you, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean that's another fun one as well because it's not just like you tell Copilot what to do and it does it. You can also ask it what it did and it'll explain it to you. And it'll say, yes, I pulled this data set from here and I did this calculation on that and I got the total this way. Um, it's just like talking to someone. It really is.
It's unbelievable, to be honest with you. And no, I really looking forward to seeing what Copilot can bring. The what other things are on your agenda in terms of theory though, Wesley? Because I know obviously we've been talking a lot about Copilot and obviously the release and
Mm.
sort of things that we'd like to see it doing in the future. But what do you envisage coming on the horizon in the future?
I'm gonna jump ahead. I was gonna talk about Word and PowerPoint, but I want to jump to Teams quickly because I think Teams is the one that is gonna be the most interesting for me to see, or the one that I'm most excited for, because I think I personally struggle with note taking and sort of transcribing meetings and making sure that I understood what everyone said throughout maybe like an hour long meeting, right? It's long, but Copilot in Teams is going to be able to do that note taking for you, right? It's going to be able to, you're going to be able to ask it maybe during a meeting or even after a meeting, can you summarize what each speaker said? What was the general like tone of the meeting? If you were describing a product or trying to sell a product, you'll be able to ask ChatGPT what it thought the outcome of the meeting was. Actionable points, it'll be able to, you know, determine what the next actionable points that were discussed in the meeting. I think Teams integration with Copilot is going to be a really, really fun one.
A question on that as well, with Copilot integrating directly into Teams and people having voice now through Teams as well, so Teams telephony, would it be able to transcribe and record telephone calls and be that kind of assistant making notes on telephone calls?
I'm sure if you're using Teams through some third-party software, for sure, yeah, it'll integrate the exact same way.
That could be a game changer also as well, because I mean, thinking of the money people spend on recording software for phone systems. If you're using Teams telephony, having AI there already transcribe that and potentially record it and save that within a SharePoint folder, for example, you know, that could potentially save a lot of money when it comes to other third-party applications being bolted on to that phone system in order to record. So again, it's hitting on that legislation of calls need to be recorded for so long and backed up, etc. So it can do all that for you in the background as well.
Yeah. Another thing that I guess we haven't also spoken about as well with regards to Copilot is its integration between applications. So we're talking about Copilot. Let's say your Teams meeting is completed or finished. You'll be able to ask Copilot. There'll be a little sidebar in Teams, and you ask it, please email a summary of this conversation to, and then you just say who it is, to me and you, Jamie. Just email us. And it'll do that. It'll summarize it and it'll create the email and it'll send the email off. All Office apps are going to be able to integrate that way. I mean, you will be able to ask it to, let's go be wild with this, but ask it to create a PowerPoint that discuss the key talking points of this meeting. I mean, that one's pretty vague, but it would be very interesting to see what it does, right? Because it's integrated into PowerPoint and it can create PowerPoint applications for you as well.
I think we need to, when Copilot is released for general use, I think we need to jump into a call, Wesley, and really have a good play about with the power behind the AI itself. Just a few things that we've spoken about today. You know, there's I'm sure a lot more power behind the tool itself, but you know, just the little things we've spoken about can save hours in a person's working week. Which I think everybody here would love to see. You know, what could you be doing with that time that you save by using AI carrying out these repetitive mundane tasks? So Wesley, I mean, I think we're coming 25 past 10 now, so I'd like to say we'll hit the Q&A session for our guests if we can. We have a message come from Chris. So Chris has asked, will Copilot be a free add-on? I'm guessing to the Microsoft package that you already have. So any insight to that, Wesley?
Yeah, from what I understand, it's free.
Is there a specific package that you would have to be on? Because I know, for example, Microsoft, they tier their packages. You've got Business Basic, Standard, Premium, E1, E3, etc. Would you have to be on a certain level to have access to Copilot, or do you think they'll stagger it, saying that you get this access with Standard, this access with Basic, and Premium, and so on?
So
I know they're quite guilty of that in the past with their packages. So.
I'd have to look into that, to be honest, Jamie. But from my understanding, it's just going to be an update to their current application suite. So if you have an Office subscription, it's built into all those apps, and all those apps integrate into all those apps will have Copilot, and Copilot will talk to all the other apps.
Awesome. So we'll just literally wake up one morning after a PC update one night, and it'll be readily available. There'll be a little pop-up saying that Copilot is now active, I'm guessing. So
well,
perfect.
We hope it's that smooth. Obviously, there are bugs, mistakes do happen. Microsoft isn't perfect, so we'll see how it goes.
We've witnessed that. Hey, if Microsoft was perfect, Wes, we wouldn't be in the job. So,
Yeah.
but we have another question. So, Werner, my friend, how are you? Thank you ever so much for your question. So, Werner has asked, is there any news on a release date for Copilot as of yet?
So it was announced in March. I know that there's I would say it's still in beta testing with no official release date yet. just as of May, it was announced that there's like 600 partners that have that have been given access to trial it. I assume those are very big players. That's probably companies like Amazon and on that scale have access to it. No, there is no release date yet, but they were pushing for this year. That's all I know.
Perfect. I'm just looking online as well now, guys, just to further that question. It was released to only 600 customers willing to pay for early access back in May. So very much still in the beta testing stage. I'm sure, obviously, once they've ironed out as many bugs as they can, it will be released to the general market and obviously for us to use as well. I'd like to see it personally being released sooner rather than later, because I know it saved me a lot of time in the tasks that I carry out daily. That is it for the questions at the moment. Any more questions, guys?
I see a Google Workspace or Office 365, which offers better automation functionality. I don't actually know the functionality of Google Workspace. Do you, Jamie?
So Google Workspace is over the last couple of years, they've took a massive step forward, because the previous kind of G Suite that they offered wasn't living up to expectation when it was comparing it to Microsoft 365. But what I've seen in the last, say, 12 to 24 months, they've made a massive jump forward in terms of the Google Workspace, the evolution from G Suite to that kind of new system. And it's, from what I've heard from people who use it, is now becoming a neck-on-neck rival with Microsoft 365. Whether their automation and AI is going to be as good, to be honest with you, I haven't looked into Google's investment in that space as of yet. Keen to actually see that though, Wesley. I mean, I think that's something we should look into in the future. So
yeah, I mean that's a very interesting topic as well, because obviously Google didn't invest in OpenAI when it was looking for funding, right? So Google's sort of parallel to OpenAI. They've done their own research and got their own language model. They're not using OpenAI's model at all. So they're a different player in the space completely. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do. I know Google released Google Bard, but I don't think that integrates with Google Workspace in any way. It's its own separate sort of co-pilot to the internet and not really a workspace AI.
I'm wondering whether they may build that in, similar to what Microsoft has. Obviously Microsoft has looked at ChatGPT, they've used it, they've gone, right, here's a chunk of cash, we want to invest, we want to become game changers. And I'm sure Google, looking at what Microsoft are doing, are not going to be far behind that.
No,
so I
for
would be
sure.
keen to see if Bard is integrated with the Google Workspace. And it would also be interesting, maybe we could do this in a future webinar, is looking at the Google versus Microsoft, both in terms of the workspace itself and the AI integration in that. So, but no, it's I do think it is massive, to be honest with you. Oh, we have a question come through from James. James has asked, any thoughts on Bard and how do all these AIs compare? Very good question. My quick thought on that before I hand over to Wesley to answer is the early days of Bard and ChatGPT and all the other AI language models being released out there for the kind of beta testing. The comparison was vastly different. So ChatGPT had more legislation, it had more restrictions in terms of what you could ask. I believe there's a story out there on Bard where Bard actually went rather bad, let's say that, and started talking about the extinction of the human race. So how it compares at the starting phase was widely different, but I do think as time progresses, this the gap between their functionality is being narrowed more and more. Wesley, any additional kind of points to that?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, yes, like you said, Jamie, Bard's first few days weren't the greatest. I know it's improved since then for sure, and I have tried it out. That versus Bing's AI as well. I think I do prefer Bing's AI. I think it's just more concise about what the responses that it gives. But what I've noticed is it's nothing really compares to ChatGPT's ability to be creative with its responses. I feel like you can ask it more and you can mold it into a specific kind of response more. Bing and Bard are more just like, it helps you Google search basically. And it does a very good job at that. It's going to give you better results, I find, doing that than just Googling something in the search bar, because it does the digging into the websites for you, which is very helpful.
Perfect. I suppose with the AI there as well, because at the moment you type something in, for example, looking at IT support, let's just say that the search results are based on SEO, which I think with AI, if you were to ask AI specifically, I'm looking at IT support within the central London area that can deliver 24-hour service. It wouldn't matter whether someone's paid for, very high SEO results, where they're going to be top of the page, because that AI model is going to go, okay, whether you are top of the search results, you don't offer 24-hour service and you're not based in central London. So it's going to go to the next relevant option for you. So its results would then maybe change. It wouldn't matter in terms of SEO so much. That's as far as I'm looking into it. Would you say that's right, or?
I would say that's right. Obviously, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, I assume Google and Microsoft probably still have a lot of probably rely still quite a lot on SEO just to make sure that the right advertisers are being advertised to the right people. So there's probably something like that's in play. But no, I think and also it gives you sources as well. Like I know Bing's AI, it sources the websites for you, and it tells you where it sourced what information from. It's very useful just to help me find websites that are relevant to the topic that I Googled. I think it's really helpful.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So we are coming up to the end of the webinar. I do see there's James is typing another question, so we'll wait a few seconds for James. Have also seen Kunjal. Welcome to the webinar. I've seen you pop in, so thank you for joining today, Kunjal. Good to see you. Kunjal, I will ask if you've joined, if you have any questions, because you are a very technical gentleman based on our conversations. If you have any questions to put my colleague Wesley on the spot, you're more than welcome to ask that. So
Thank you, Jamie.
Hey, that's okay, Wesley. You know me. I like to put people on the spot there. So, but no, to be honest, the next couple of months, I think we're going to see even further expansion into the AI space. Oh, hang on a second. James has put a question. The new Google search bar, I like it. Also, could it ever be monetized in by companies?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but Bing has a token system, so you have to buy tokens for asking your questions, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but that has been a bit of a conversation as well with regards to how these AI models are going to work. I think monetization wise. I think the main one is just if you ask it a question, you have to buy a certain number of tokens, and each time you ask a question, it takes a token. That's probably something that they're going to want to implement, I think.
You are right there. I have just seen Google Bard and Bing Chat have a token limit of 2K.
Yeah.
ChatGPT-3 and GPT-3 and ChatGPT support 4K tokens, and GPT-4 comes with a default limit of 8,000. So
Yeah. And I know
there is limitations.
ChatGPT's also they also monetize it with regards to API access. So I know a lot of people have been trying to use these ChatGPT in their third-party applications. And in order to integrate it with it, you have to pay. There's those kinds of things that are in play as well. So yeah.
I think it would make sense for anybody to monetize this, rather than giving it a unlimited amount of responses, because you can go absolutely wild with it. Then, I think these companies, in order to progress the way they're looking to move forward in the AI space, they need some form of investment, and they're not just going to keep getting free investments from these organizations. So I think they would have to monetize it in some form in the future. So, but I think we've reached the end of today's show, guys. I will thank everybody again for attending. We do have another webinar coming up next month. The next webinar is on the Internet of Things, the must-haves for your business cybersecurity, and that commences on the 26th of July, Wednesday at 10 a.m. But I'd love to see all you guys there again. And if you do have any friends or colleagues which you feel would benefit from attending one of these webinars, please do definitely invite them. We try and keep these fun, interactive, and as natural as we potentially can. So we try and keep these natural conversations flowing. But I will say a special thank you to Wesley today for joining us on the call again. Wesley, your knowledge in the kind of software development realm, the artificial intelligence, I think we need to spend some more time together. You need to pass out some of that knowledge to me. Absolutely amazing what you've been speaking about, and thank you ever so much for joining us on the webinar today. And I'm sure, guys, we'll see Wesley again in the future. So
Thank you so much, Jamie. Really appreciate it. Love to come on here and have a chat with you. Very much
Hey,
appreciate it.
not a problem at all, Wesley. Thank you for joining, and thank you everybody. If you would like a conversation afterwards, I'll post my email address in the chat now. You're more than welcome to pop me an email across, or indeed give me a call on the main line and just request for myself. But really good seeing you all again today, and I look forward to seeing you next month. But thank you ever so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Cheers, guys.